Okay, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Innistrad Crimson Vow is scheduled to come out in just a few weeks here, and there have been some spoilers that have been leaked online. Purposefully by Wizards, they give out some cards to influencers and people on Twitter and people involved in the Magic community to reveal these cards before they're actually released. So today we're going to go into TierMaker, and we're going to be getting our initial thoughts on these cards, basically giving them a rank. So the ranking system will break down S, A, B, C, and D. S was something that you would generally see and you would say this is an incredible card. It's pretty close to an auto include in whatever color that I'm playing. So for instance, things like right now Frostbite in red, Blizzard Brawl in green, Saw It Coming mostly in blue. These things that are staples of the format, or potentially staples of the format for something that the color that you're playing. A is going to be something that we're glad to have in our deck, basically almost always, except for maybe in really weird build around decks that don't favor just a really good card, or a niche deck. B is something that we definitely want to play. It's playable. C is something that may be barely playable, and D is just going to be something that under basically almost no circumstances do you play the card. So, right off the bat, let's get into our first card, and that card is going to be Dormant Grove and Gnarled Grove Strider. So Dormant Grove is 3 and a green. It's an enchantment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then if that creature has toughness 6 or greater, transform Dormant Grove. And it transforms into a Gnarled Grove Strider, which is a 3/6 vigilance, and other creatures you control have vigilance. So 4-drop enchantment that you get to place a 1/1 counter on something that you control every turn. Sort of an effect like Luminarch Aspirant in enchantment form, but then it has the bonus of transforming when you have a creature with toughness 6 or greater. So applications here would be if you're trying to get it to transform immediately, you want to play a high toughness creature. Unfortunately, in the format right now, there's not a lot of place for high toughness creatures. The only thing I can think of is the 1/4 Black Dwarf Citizen that lets you sack things to draw cards. And I'm not sure that's where you want to be here. This card might be okay in limited. It is an uncommon. Having a 3/6 vigilance out is probably fine. By the time you do that, that means you have another 6 toughness creature, but it does cost 4 to initially put out. So limited, probably a little bit more powerful. But in constructed, I don't see this getting much play. We're going to go with, we'll make it a C for Dormant Grove and Gnarled Grove Strider. You might be happy to play it in limited, but for constructed, I'm not seeing much value here. Just because 3/6 vigilance doesn't impact the board a ton. Next card up is Valorous Stance. 1 plains, 1 colorless for an instant. To choose one, target creature gains indestructible until end of turn, or destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater. This card seems pretty diverse in its use. It seems pretty wide, that you can use it to stop a removal spell other than exile on a creature that you control, or you can also kill one of their big bombs. I think this card's going to be very good in limited. I think it might also have a place in constructed if we see more cards with power 4 or greater. Right now we have some with Goldspan Dragon, some of the dragons out there, Old Growth Troll, Briar Ridge Tracker, Adeline Resplendent Cathar. We have a few in the meta with toughness. Power 4 or greater. No, toughness 4 or greater. But we're not seeing a lot of that. We have a lot of 2/2s, 3/1s, 3/3s in that. So I'm going to go ahead and give this probably a B. I can see this being B+, somewhere like that in limited. Valorous Stance will be probably a pretty good spell in limited. Maybe even an A. So the next card we have is Path of Peril. Swamp and a colorless, total of 3. Destroy all creatures with mana value 2 or less, but it has a new mechanic. If you haven't seen this mechanic yet, it's for Innistrad Crimson Vow. It is called Cleave. And if you pay the Cleave cost, you take out the bracketed words in the description. So, for instance, this card has a Cleave cost of 4, a Plains in a Swamp, and you can take out the bracketed words with mana value 2 or less to just destroy all creatures. So, basically it ends up costing you 3 to destroy everything with mana value 2 or less, or 6 as a traditional Wrath. This card right now, we have a lot of Wraths. We have Doomscar. This one is a little bit more versatile because it is selective. So say you have a deck with a lot of creatures that cost 3 or more, you're able to be a little bit more selective on that. But Shadow's Verdict is still a card in play in Standard right now, and Shadow's Verdict gets rid of, I believe, everything 3 or less. Let me make sure here before I go. Yeah, exile creatures and planeswalkers with mana value 3 or less from the battlefield, but it takes 5. So I could see this getting some play. I don't think it's going to be incredible. We'll go ahead and rate that a B. The next one is the new Planeswalker from this set, and it is Sorin the Mirthless. Sorin comes in black, and 2, so he's 4. Comes in with 4 loyalty points. And his +1 ability is look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card, put it into your hand. If you do, you lose life equal to this mana value. -2 to create a 2/3 black vampire creature token with flying and lifelink. And ultimate at -7, Sorin the Mirthless deals 13 damage to any target and you gain 13 life. So a lot of times you're not going to be getting to that 7. This one will require 3 turns before you can get to 7, but it does have the ability at -2 to defend itself. So, and the +1 ability is actually not bad either. It allows you to look at the top card of your library, grab a card, put it into your hand, and you lose some life. But that's what Black's about anyways. I think this card's going to be quite powerful. You can slam this down on turn 4, -2 to make a 2/3 black vampire creature token with flying and lifelink. You can use that to defend Sorin. If you have another creature or 2, you can defend it. I think it's going to stick to the board more often than a lot of the other planeswalkers that we've seen. Renin 7 we've seen has been very powerful in its ability to make a token and defend itself. So I'm going to go ahead and give Sorin the Mirthless, I want to say it's going to be an A, but I'm not sure. So Lolth, I would say, is probably an A. That's currently in Standard right now. Let's give it a tentative A because it does have versatility. It can draw you a card, and if you do manage to get the ultimate off, it's very powerful. It probably means death to your opponent. So we'll go ahead and put Sorin as an A. Next one we do have is Olivia Crimson Bride. And in the lore, this is going to be Sorin's wife. So let's see if we can find that card real quick. The spoiler picture quality is not great, so you'll have to excuse me. So we're at 4 colorless, black, and a mountain for Olivia Crimson Bride. 3 power, 4 toughness, flying haste. When this creature attacks, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains when you don't control legendary vampire. Exile this creature. Sounds pretty good that you can just recur things from your graveyard back to the battlefield. My only concern with Olivia is that there's a little bit of build around that you have to do with her. So let's say that you have Olivia out, slam it down for 5, attack for 3 in the air, bring another creature back, tapped and attacking. That is pretty powerful. I do like that, and you can get the ETB effects of the other creatures that come into play, but the issue is that if somebody has instant speed removal, takes out Olivia, or even if you get one swing in, they take out Olivia, that creature goes back to the graveyard and dies. And it's only boasting 3 power. It is flying, so I'm going to go ahead and give Olivia a B right now. I'm not sure how much play it will see. If you have another legendary vampire on board, it becomes significantly better. I'm going to go ahead and just say it's B right now. potentially a B+, something like that. Next card we have is Geralf Visionary Stitcher. And I haven't seen all of these cards yet. So I'm going to do, this is kind of like a raw reaction here too. Geralf Visionary Stitcher, blue and 2 colorless, total of 3 mana. Zombies you control have flying. Power and toughness 1/4. It also has an ability, tap a blue mana, tap it, sack another non-token creature, and you create an XX blue zombie creature token where X is the sacrificed creature's toughness. This seems quite good, particularly in blue, to have the 4 toughness to be able to block early creatures, especially aggressive 3/1s, 2/1s, X1s, things of that nature. You're also going to be able to sack another non-token creature at any time. So say you have a bomb that you cast and they target it with removal. Well, if you have a blue mana open and Geralf is untapped, you can just tap it, sacrifice that creature, and then create an XX blue flying zombie because he gives all of your zombies flying. I think this card's going to be quite good. Particularly in limited with blue-black zombies, I would give that probably an A to an S because I think it's a solid addition to the blue-black zombie archetype. That being said, for constructed, this may, and a couple other cards in this set, make blue-black zombies okay in constructed. I'm going to give this an A based on its limited potential. It's probably more like a B in constructed, but there could be some really cool things. I think it has a lot of potential. We are going to skip Essence Exposure. I believe that has been proven to be a fake. So our next card is Overcharged Amalgam, which has the new mechanic Exploit. An exploit says when this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. This costs 2 islands, 2 colorless. It's a 3/3 flying with flash. And when Overcharged Amalgam exploits a creature, you can counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. I think this card is very good. Very, very good. So it has 3 power in the air. It's flash, so it can come in and ambush people right off the bat. This card is going to be particularly good. It is a zombie in blue-black zombies, so you can exploit one of your decayed zombie tokens to counter a spell. That seems very powerful to me, particularly countering a bomb. In limited, I would say this is probably going to be an S. Constructed, I'm going to say it's still probably an A in blue. So, yeah, Overcharged Amalgam, I'm really looking forward to playing with that card. Next up, we have Wedding Ring. And Wedding Ring is a artifact. It's 2 white and 2 colorless. When Wedding Ring enters the battlefield, if it was cast, target opponent creates a token that's a copy of it. Whenever an opponent who controls an artifact named Wedding Ring draws a card during their turn, you draw a card. When an opponent who controls an artifact named Wedding Ring gains life, you gain that much life. I don't see this card being amazing. Looks like this may actually be... Actually, I'm just noticing this. This may be actually for the commander set. Yeah, it seems like a commander card, so we're not really going to include it in here. The next one we'll go is Gutter Stalker / Sewer Shortcut. Gutter Stalker is 3 and a blue for a 3/3 that cannot be blocked as long as it's attacking alone. When it dies, it has the Disturb mechanic, so you can play it from your graveyard. Or it looks like 4. Then it becomes an aura that enchants a creature. And it gives that creature that it can't be blocked as long as it's attacking alone as well. If Sewer Shortcut would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So, if it's attacking alone, this is one of those cards where it might be good to have like a little bit of equipment on it to get a saboteur type of mechanic that we've seen a little bit in the D&D set. I'm not super impressed with this. I think it's, an unblockable 3/3, but it has to be attacking alone. is decent. I think in limited this is probably a B. In constructed, I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably a C, just for the 4 mana cost. There are build around things. If you can put some really strong equipment on it or something, that would be great, but it also doesn't have any evasion from removal. So if they really want to get rid of it, they can do that pretty easily. Next card is Dreadfugue, 1 black, cleave cost of 3. So if you play it for 1 black, target player reveals their hand, you choose a non-land card with a mana value 2 or less, and that player discards that card. If you play it for 3, you can choose any card in their hand. Typical hand disruption. I think there's nothing crazy different here. The versatility of being able to pay it for 1 or 3 is kind of cool, but I'm going to go ahead and give that a C. Innocent Traveler. This card is interesting. 2 black, 2 colorless, so a total of 4 for a 1/3 human. And at the beginning of your upkeep, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If no one does, transform Innocent Traveler. When Innocent Traveler transforms, it becomes a 3/3 with flying that gets +2/+0 as long as an opponent controls a human. Titled Malicious Invader. So it's a 4-drop. If they don't sack a creature, it becomes a 3/3 flying. That's the floor, and a 5/3 flying if they have a human. This card seems okay. I could see it being combined with Slaughter Specialist that gives the opponent a 1/1 human. That would be from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. That would be a nice little combo to guarantee that you make it a 5/3. But I think it's probably in C category. So we'll go ahead and put that there. Next card is Mindlech Ghoul. 1 black, 1 colorless. It's a common. 2/2 exploit. When it exploits a creature, each opponent exiles a card from their hand. So, can come down as a 2/2. I think the only creature that you want to exploit with this is probably going to be a Decayed Zombie, but it is a zombie. I think it's fine. If you're exploiting any other creature other than a Decayed Zombie, you're not really getting a lot of value out of it. I'm going to give this probably a D. I'm sure it's probably playable and limited, but I don't see a place for this in constructed at all. Next one is Fell Stinger. It's a zombie scorpion. 1 black and 2 colorless at uncommon for a 3/2 death touch. Already pretty decent stats. And it has exploit. When it exploits a creature, target player draws 2 cards, loses 2 life. I think this card is quite strong, particularly that it's a zombie scorpion. So again, if you pay this for 3, you get a 3/2 death toucher. You lose 2 life and draw 2 cards if you exploit one of your Decayed Zombies. At uncommon, I think this is a pretty decent card. I'm going to go ahead and probably give this a B. I could see this making some blue-black zombie decks for sure. Next card we have up is Thalia, Guardian of Thaben. 1 plains, 1 colorless for a 2/1 first strike. Legendary human soldier. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. So we're seeing this theme of white tax with Redain, Spellbinder, Archon of Emeria, things like that continue in Crimson Vow. I think this card's going to be a solid 2-drop. I like it a lot. Having first strike means that you put this out there with an Aspirant, it becomes a 3/2 first strike pretty easily. That's going to be hard to get through in the early game, and just having that tax for non-creature spells I think is great. So I'm going to give this probably a I think this is probably going to be A. I think most white decks are going to want to run it in some form, even if it's just sideboarding for spell decks. Could be a B, but there's a lot of good 2-drops in white right now. Next card we have up is Apprentice Sharpshooter. It's 1 forest, 2 colorless for a 1/4 with reach. Has training, which is something we haven't talked about yet. It's a new mechanic for Crimson Vow. When this creature attacks with another creature with greater power, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So I think the training mechanic does have potential, particularly if you have training with some Coven in your deck, which training seems to be in white and green too. This card I don't think is very good though. It's a common. It's a 1/4 with reach with training for 3. I think it's probably a D. I'm sure you could play it in limited if you really need to, but even there, I wouldn't pick it over most other things. Next card we have is Griff Rider, 1 plains, 2 colorless for a 2/1 flying with training. This is a little better, a little bit more aggressive. I could see this being played in limited, fine. It's a playable card. I'm going to give it a D because I don't think it has any constructed potential whatsoever, but I mean it's playable and limited if you need a body. Next card we have is Cemetery Protector, 2 white, 2 colorless for a 3/4 flash. When it enters the battlefield, exile a card from any graveyard. When you play a land or cast a spell, if it shares a card type with the exile card, create a 1/1 white human creature token. This is a mythic rare, it is not legendary. So 4-drop 3/4 flash with the potential to generate more humans when you play a land or cast a spell if it shares a type. I think this card's pretty strong. It's going to have a home probably in green-white tokens, maybe. I think this is a pretty decent card. I'm going to say it's probably a B. Next card is Alchemist's Gambit. This card made a lot of waves when it was revealed online and Reddit and Facebook, Magic community, and Twitter. So it's 2 mountains, 1 colorless, and it has a cleave cost of 4 colorless, 2 blue, and a red. And remember, whenever you cleave, you delete the bracketed text. So this text is take an extra turn after this one. During that turn, damage can't be prevented. At the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game. So you have the power to take an extra turn using solely red for 3 mana, but if you don't win during that turn, you're going to lose. But you can also cleave it for 7, meaning just take an extra turn. So, people are thinking this is going to be an Is It alongside maybe Alrund's Epiphany. I don't think it's as good as Alrund's Epiphany. First, you don't get 2 birds. Secondly, you can't foretell it because that foretell does matter, casting Alrund's Epiphany for 6. Also, you have to have the 2 islands and the mountain and the 4 colorless. I think this card's probably worse than Alrund's Epiphany. That being said, I'm still going to put it at B. I think there may be some red decks that really want to take advantage of this and can, you know, how many times have you played an aggro deck where you say, oh, if I just had 1 extra turn, they were at 2 or 3 life, and I think this might be one of those cards that's able to push that damage through. But we will definitely see. It's a big risk, though. Dig Up is our next card for 1 forest. And it has a cleave cost. I can't see that. Let me see. It is a green sorcery, but it has a cleave cost of 1 colorless mana, 2 black mana, and a green mana. You can search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle. If you pay the cleave cost for 4, you search your library for any card. You do not have to reveal it, and you put it into your hand and then shuffle. I think this card is better than most ramp cards like this that we've seen recently, except for maybe some of the ones in Zendikar Rising with Kicker. Just because of that cleave cost, it's nice to have a green and black tutor at 4 if you need it. You can always also just go grab the land on turn 1. So I think this card is actually going to be a decent, if you're in Golgari colors, I think it's going to be a decent include. Just because of the versatility for early and later game. If you top deck this, there's not really a problem going and grabbing whatever card you need for 4. Unlike other cards where if you top deck something, it's like go grab a land, you're like, well, I don't want that. So I'm going to give this probably a B. I think that could see some play. Next card we have is Engulfing Tide. 2 blue, 2 colorless, total of 4. Sorcery at rare. Each player chooses a non-land permanent they control, return each other non-land permanent to its owner's hand, then draw a card for each opponent with more cards in hand than you. So, a lot of value here for Commander. I am assuming that it's going to find some deck to have some play because it is a very powerful effect in Standard. Basically, each person chooses something, return everything else to the hands, and then if they have more cards than you get to draw a card. So it can cantrip itself too, and it's only 4 mana, and this could mean huge tempo advantage for blue. I think this card is probably going to, I'm going to give it a B. Next card that we have is Toxrill the Corrosive. Big creature at 7/7 for 7 mana, 2 of which has to be black. Legendary Slug Horror. At the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. Then when a creature you don't control with a slime counter on it dies, create a 1/1 black slug creature token. And then you can tap a blue and a black and sacrifice a slug and draw a card. This card's extremely nasty if it sticks on board. It just, especially against creature matchups, it just withers away, quite literally, their creatures and then makes slugs that you can use to draw cards. If this card sticks around for any length of time, 2 or 3 turns, the game is probably going to be over and you're probably going to win. This card in Limited is going to be insanely good. I'm going to go ahead and give Toxrill the Corrosive an A because I think the card is strong enough even at 7 mana, particularly in creature matchups, that you can build around. There may be a way to cheat it out. There may be a way to, ramp up early and get that out because it's just a game ender. Now it doesn't have any evasion, so you're gonna need to protect it somehow. But if it sticks on the board, it'll end games. Next card that we have is Voldaren Estate. It's a land. It's not legendary. You can tap it to add a colorless. You can tap it to pay 1 life, add mana of any colors, but you can only spend that mana to cast a vampire spell. You can also, I can't see that. You can tap I believe it's 5. Create a blood token. And a blood token is tap 1 and tap it and discard it, and then basically just loot. Excuse me, no, you get to draw sacrifice the artifact and draw a card. So you pay a mana to discard the blood token and draw a card. So it's a little bit like, we've seen a lot of treasure. It's like, I guess, the newer version of that. It gives you card draw. I'm not sure how it's going to play out. I'm sure in Vampires decks they'll run it, but generally, I don't know. I'm going to give it a C. I'm sure it's probably good in Vampire decks. Next card is Vilespawn Spider. 1 blue, 1 green for a 2/3 with reach. Pretty good stats already. At the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card. Tap 2 colorless mana, a green and a blue. Tap it and sacrifice the spider. Create a 1/1 green insect creature token for each creature card in your graveyard. Activate only as a sorcery. So this green-blue self-mill effect that we have seen in Innistrad Midnight Hunt might be a little bit more powerful here. I'm not sure of the utility of creating a bunch of 1/1 green insect creatures unless you're doing something tricky like the blue card where it says anytime another creature comes into the battlefield it becomes a copy of another one or something like that. I think this is going to be a pretty heavy build around card. I don't see this being crazy good on its own. That being said, I'll give it a C because I think there is potential there. Next card is another Planeswalker, Chandra, Dressed to Kill. She's dressed to kill for the wedding. I haven't actually even read this card, so let's get a raw reaction here. 2 red and a colorless, total of 3 mana, 3 loyalty counters upon entering the battlefield. +1, add 1 red mana. Chandra, Dressed to Kill, deals 1 damage to up to 1 target player or Planeswalker. +1 again, exile the top card of your library. If it's red, you may cast it this turn. -7, exile the top 5 cards of your library. You may cast red spells from among them this turn. You get an emblem with whenever you cast a red spell, this emblem deals X damage to any target, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. This card may have a place in Burn or something like that. It can't defend itself at all, which I hate. particularly coming in with only 3 loyalty counters. It just gets schmo killed by attack from 1/3/1. It does give you a mana on a +1 though, so you can cast it for 3, +1 it, bring it to 4, put another red mana into your pool. I think basically that's going to be the main use. Is that +1 just giving you an extra mana every turn, sort of like a red ramp. I don't see it being incredibly good, but I don't see it being bad either. I'm gonna give it a C, even as a legendary planeswalker. I could be wrong about that. There are a lot of X1s in the format though, and this can come down on turn 3 and just kill one of their creatures. Actually, let's put that in B. I think that's probably where it's wanting to live, because if you can kill a couple creatures with this, say Professor of Symbology, what's that, the 3/1 dog, there's a few X1s in the format, so I think it's probably pretty solid at a B. A couple more cards here. Anje, Maid of Dishonor. Can't read that card, so I'm gonna have to look that one up as well. And I haven't actually seen this one either. This is 2 colorless, a black and a red for a 4/5. Pretty decent base stats. Whenever Anje, Maid of Dishonor, and or one or other vampires enter the battlefield under your control, create a blood token. This ability triggers only once each turn, and as we know, blood tokens are 1 colorless, tap it, discard a card, and then draw a card, so it is looting. But Anje, Maid of Dishonor also gives you a static ability that you can use with all your other blood tokens, which is tap 2 mana, sack a creature or a blood token. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. I think this is pretty strong, giving you another use for your blood tokens and making them just drain 2 from your opponent and give you back 2 life at instant speed, and not only having to be activated once per turn. So let's say that you have 2 or 3 blood tokens out. You have 6 mana. This is a pretty decent 6 mana mana sink later in the game to just instantly drain them of 6 life and have you gain some life. It can also be used in if you're taking lethal damage. Your opponent may forget that you have blood tokens out there and you can grab some extra life. So let's say Anje, Maid of Dishonor is going to be solid B category, maybe A. It's only a 4-drop and it's a 4/5. And it has other vampires enter the battlefield. You create blood tokens from them too. I'm going to give this an A in vampire decks. I think that's very strong, because you can have Anje, Maid of Dishonor out, you can cast another vampire. Those blood tokens will add up pretty quickly, I would say. The next card we have is Helena and Elena, partners. This is Rule colors. So this costs 4, costs 1 red, 1 green, and 2 colorless for a 2/3 first strike and reach. So automatically, right off the bat, you see the influence of both red and green here with first strike and reach. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is Helena and Elena's power. That creature gains haste until end of turn. I think this card's pretty strong. It doesn't have an immediate effect on the battlefield, so you have to be careful because it can just be removed immediately. It does cost 4, so typically whenever we have to wait a turn or two to get the effect, we want them to be cheap. But I think the base stats of 2/3 with first strike and reach, they're kind of underpowered for 4, but if you can stick this, maybe you have a Snakeskin Veil in your hand if you're running Rule. If you can stick this on the board, you're talking 2 counters and giving something haste every turn. So you play another creature on turn 5, it's like maybe a 4/4, comes in as a 6/4 haste. It's a pretty powerful effect. But again, it has no evasion and it takes a while for it to be activated. Something like Goldspan Dragon, the reason why it's so powerful is it immediately comes down and has an effect on the board. It smashes face for 4 instantly in the air, gets you a treasure token. This you're going to have to wait a turn or two. I'm going to say this is a C right now. I could be wrong. This card could be incredible, but there is a lot of interaction in the format right now, and just because an effect is powerful, if it can't take effect, then it doesn't mean anything. You just paid 4 mana for a 2/3. So those are all the cards that we have right now. In terms of spoilers, there are new cards coming out every single day. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, if you would like and subscribe, I really appreciate it. It really helps the channel. And if you think I'm wrong on any of these cards, please drop a comment below. I'd be glad to hear your thoughts. I'm always interested in hearing, if I missed something, or if I taught you something you didn't know, or if I don't know something. So just leave a comment down there. Appreciate the likes and the subscribes, and I will see you next time with more Crimson Vow spoilers as they come out.